This is Daisy. Daisy, before I hand it over to you, I just want to share a couple of things
Mhm.
with the people watching. So, Daisy's 31 years old. She works in a high pressure PR agency and was diagnosed with ADHD less than a year before we started working together. When she came to me, she was coming out of 2 months of full burnout. She was the least active she had ever been. She was exhausted, struggling to eat well, and she had been through enough failed routines to stop trusting herself to stick to anything. She spent most of her life pouring care into everyone around her and very little into herself. She started this program at 87.5 kilograms and 110 centimeters around her waist. And in just 16 weeks, she's at 75.8 kilograms and 95.76 centimeters. So that means she lost 11.7 kilograms and over 14 centimeters from her waist without crash dieting, whilst her job was going through a full company acquisition and whilst work pressure was as intense as it's ever been. Here's what it was like from her side.
Mhm.
So,
Thank you.
Daisy, welcome. Before we started, what was life actually like for you, physically, mentally?
So as you mentioned, I had been quite recently diagnosed with ADHD. It was less than a year before we started working together, and that during that period of time was, whilst it felt really empowering to know that that's something that I was dealing with, was also really difficult mentally and emotionally because I had to rethink about how to approach my life. A lot of the ways of coping weren't necessarily very healthy, but I didn't know necessarily what new versions of operating and new systems of managing my ADHD were yet. And given my job was pretty full on
Mm.
consistently, even though I did have 2 months off with burnout, I, yeah, that sort of pretty much took over any cognitive space I had left. So um, I, my
Yeah.
physical self-care was really taking a hit. I used to cook and then I wasn't cooking anymore. Everything just became like a big mountain to climb.
All right, we lost connection for a second there, but we're back in. And I wanted to ask you a question because I know I experienced this and I've spoken to several other people who have ADHD and it kind of resonates with them. Maybe someone watching might feel the same. And it's basically when you finally get your diagnosis, things kind of seem to get worse in terms of symptoms before they kind of get better. Is that something that you experienced?
Yeah, definitely. And it did scare me a little bit and also made me think that maybe I was faking it because I just didn't understand how I couldn't do all the things I could do before. And I think that's the key thing about what I just said in terms of having to like refigure out how to just approach life, because I think we all have so many like coping mechanisms and ways of doing things that helped us get through, that when we finally had an answer for why all those things were so difficult, it kind of shattered the illusion of saying, well, I can't do those things that way. And there's a reason why, and I shouldn't have to do them the hard way. But you don't necessarily have quite all the answers yet for how to do it in a way that helps yourself. So you're kind of a bit adrift and a bit lost, and it does compound things. If you're stressed, ADHD symptoms will get worse. If your sleep gets worse, it's all connected. So yeah, I wouldn't take it as um, a red flag if that happens to people. It is unfortunately part of the journey, but it does mean that it does get better after that as well. So
It does, absolutely. Yeah, I remember for like a period of time just thinking that I almost wish I didn't get diagnosed because again, it got so bad. But at the same time, once you understand what it is that you're dealing with through and through, then you can actually go out and find true, better, more healthier ways to do what you need to do, as opposed to like a lot of us tend to do is just kind of work more, you know what I mean, to get
yeah,
what, just to kind of make up for inefficiencies and stuff, which, yeah.
yeah, that's it. I think the key thing is like healthier, I think is the key term you use there, because I absolutely could do everything loads more than even now, but it wasn't a healthy way of living. And once you understand that it's hard, your body pretty much can't do what you used to do because it understands too much now and you can't like sort of brute force your way through. So it's a slower journey, but the fact that it's going to be healthier and more sustainable and more actually helpful for you, I think is the main thing.
For sure. Awesome. We started off the kind of call introducing the, I guess, the awesome achievement that you've had so far, but we're constantly striving towards the fitness, the health and fitness goals, as well as helping you be a bit more regulated in terms of ADHD symptoms. So can you share a little bit about what that's been like for you on the latter side?
Yeah, so I sort of mentioned, I think even with weight and size and everything, it was sort of my lowest point or biggest point. I was at my biggest, weighed the most. So it all, I could see the effects of how my lifestyle were impacting me from that point of view. And that wasn't just what I looked like, it was how I felt as well. Like I felt heavier. It was harder to be active. So it was important for me, as well as helping with the ADHD symptoms, that I wanted to ultimately, and we spoke about this when we first were talking about getting on the program, is I just wanted to be healthier, like sort of inside, um and have that, my weight and my body composition sort of reflect my healthier lifestyle. So that's been how I've been focusing on that side of things, and having that weight drop consistently over the program has been one of the pieces of evidence to show me that my lifestyle is improving, and I am healthier, as well as feeling healthier as well.
Brilliant. What was it like, the journey, in terms of, because we cover the 4 pillars, and if you can speak a little bit about some of those pillars, what was
Mhm.
that? What were the changes like for you?
So I'll start with the sleep one, because I think that was the one we sort of decided, oh, I'm actually all right at sleep. I do get a decent amount of sleep. But what we focused on was how to really improve the quality of that, which I really saw the value in, because ultimately, if you don't get enough sleep, everything's affected. Your symptoms get worse. It means you're less likely to do other things like eat healthier and work out and everything. So one of the key things for me was the wind down routine, because I'm so activated in the day. Having that process, which can be really hard at night because my executive dysfunction is so high at night. So the last thing I want to do is do something before I have to go to bed that isn't just getting into bed. But through the program, it helped me identify what, even just like one or two things that can happen up leading up to sleep. And I've actually noticed like a big improvement on that, increasing my REM and deep sleep, which is, I know, is quite a bit harder for people with ADHD
For sure.
to have. And then we did a lot of mind work. I think the main thing for me was sort of looking at what those beliefs were that I had, limited beliefs about myself. We looked at um, how that might impact my future if I choose to go down one path of beliefs versus more of a positive path. We also looked at, more of the physical side, like brain fog. We figured out what could be helpful there. So that was underpinning all of that was meditation every day. We did a session of meditation. So I really felt that that was another element that was underpinning how I could keep going with the program, and feel supported and like prepared to do what I feel like maybe more of the harder side for me personally, which is the nutrition and the fitness. Because I love to sleep and I'm very keen. I'm a very like analytical and self-aware person. I've done a lot of work with the mind. So that sort of for me set the foundation for the bigger lifts, which were nutrition and fitness. With the nutrition, I found I really just wanted to like outsource it to someone, tell me what to buy, tell me what ingredients to use. I just was so overwhelmed with so many different ways of eating healthy, different kinds of diets, what I should put on my plate, that it was just too overwhelming. And also I find supermarkets really overstimulating. So I've never enjoyed food shopping. So the fact that we decided I'd have two different kinds of meals, sorry, like two different options per week for each of my meals, simplify it as much as possible. I went to the shop twice a week to get that bunch of stuff. I now go to the supermarket and I'm actually like okay to be there. I know where things are, and I'm even like intuitively not only like buying ingredients and figuring out, oh, if I can't have that, I'll have this. But the other thing was that not only was I struggling with meal planning, but I was snacking a lot and really had a sweet tooth. So I wasn't necessarily making good choices for how I wanted to feel. Whereas with the meal plan, it just took all of those decisions out, helped me get into a rhythm of having food that was good for me. So eventually, with your support, I was able to like understand the principles of why the food was chosen that way. So now, like 4 months in, I'm now able to, I was in the supermarket the other day looking at all the heavily marketed as protein snacks, looking at the back going, no, it's not, and putting it down again. And I was like, oh, who is this person? I'm able to actually like be able to make those decisions and be flexible with my eating. I still have things that I enjoy, but I'm able to stick to the calorie deficit or maintenance that I have and the protein goal and everything. And lastly was fitness. So this was, I think, probably the biggest hurdle for me, because you have to eat. So I needed help with that, but it's very easy not to move. And I think immediately I was thrown in the deep end, but I was really happy to do it, which was we're going to do workouts in the morning, which I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. The first workout I did, it was a struggle. I'm not going to lie, I cried, but that's just pain leaving the body. And I never cried again after that. But it
Let's
just,
go.
I even on that first day, I noticed my executive function, my prioritization, my focus was just the amount of open loops I closed at work that morning, and I just having that instant symptom relief kept me going for the next one. Um, so that motivation of I know how much better I'm going to feel after I've done it. And of course, the accountability of knowing we were going to be going through workouts kept me on track. But it was also, you know, you were helping me with form and how to improve, consistently improve. So I wanted to see those you know those reps or the deeper movement. I wanted to see that go up. So I was happy to say that it pretty much stuck to that for the whole time. And now I am actually someone who does strength training multiple times a week, which I never thought that I would say.
Let's go. Amazing. And yeah, you know, technique is super important for us. And so, you know, sometimes when people think about working with an online coach, maybe one of their reservations, I know this was mine before I transitioned to as an online coach, was like, how do you make sure your clients are doing things correctly? So we use video analysis. We got clients to kind of film themselves doing certain movements, and then we review them on our coaching calls. How did you find that on your side?
It was definitely difficult at first. I think as speaking as someone who struggles with like new tasks because there always seems to be so many steps to get there. You think, oh, I'll just pick up my phone and I'll prop it up, and then it's like, oh, what angle or what am I wearing, or being really self-conscious. So the first time I did it, I actually got my partner to film it for me because it just helped having someone else there in the room that could kind of tweak those things. And then after a little while, I figured, oh, I figured out a way that I could just set my camera up. I filmed a specific set, so the rest of the set I wasn't sort of distracted. So again, it's just figuring out what you need from me to help myself, and try and just kind of going for it. Because once I've like looked through my eyes, trying to cringing a little bit at the first videos we looked at together. Once that's done, and you're talking about the movements, that kind of embarrassment or whatever kind of goes. And then after that, it just became part of the routine. And I wanted to show you how I was doing so that, there were certain exercises where I wasn't quite sure how my back was lying and stuff like that. So having the video for myself was helpful, but then to get the confirmation from yourself whether this is good or whether something can be improved is knowledge that I don't have. So it was really important for me to be able to hear that.
Yeah, it is very common. We get a lot of clients who struggle with the same thing. Right? They feel a bit conscious filming themselves, and then they send it over. They get the coach to send it over, and then I'm like, right, now we got to watch it together. And they're like, oh.
You should film just that reaction.
So yeah, kudos to you. Not everyone does it, just quite honestly. Some people aren't able to kind of get over it.
Mm.
Yeah. And so, and we are able to still see, great results nonetheless. We keep the exercises to stuff that are technically less complicated and stuff, just to make sure that the person's doing it safely if they don't have much training experience. But I always do say, like, if you do this part, if you do take advantage of this part of what we do, there's a lot you can gain from it. So I'm just going to double check that.
Yeah, sorry. For some reason, a pop-up has come up and it's asked me to put
No
my.
problem. Awesome. No problem. Yeah. So yeah, so it was awesome to see that you had the same feelings somewhat, and then but you pushed through it.
Mhm.
And what my experience, like in terms of what I was seeing, where you started with, I mean, you were quite good from the beginning, but there were some exercises that naturally we need to adjust and make improvements, and then you film them again, send them over,
Mhm.
and make the corrections.
Mhm.
How did you feel in terms of actually improving with the techniques?
Well, yeah, there were some exercises where I could feel the difference. So I think it was things like the RDLs when you were sort of explaining to me. I think for me it was, what should I be feeling or what should I be doing with my body? Like imagine a rope and like pulling back from your middle, just so that I could have something to visualize or benchmark myself against. And then immediately I was like, oh yeah, I can feel this in my hamstrings now. One of the key things I think you told me that I took throughout the whole program was using your breathing to slow down your movements. Like that's my anchor now, and I actually think that provides another level of mindfulness to it too. So that's a key thing that I wouldn't have even thought about had I tried to do all this on my own. I think if you're doing it on your own, if you don't have someone going, oh, hey, how's the workout going? Or you feel you're almost like an all or nothing thinker. You might be like, oh, I've ruined it now. I've not done any workouts this week. What's the point? I didn't want to do it like that, but I think having the coaches there to check in and help you be honest. I wanted to be honest because if we're not being honest, then we're not going to get the most out of everything. So if I was honest for you and said, "Oh, actually, I didn't do them because X, Y, Z," and it could have been like, "Well, you could not do it because of that, but ideally, we want to be doing X, Y, Z week." There are some things where I'm like, "Is this an excuse or is this a real reason not to?" And you helped me figure out where that line is so that I knew when to push and I knew when to rest. And I think that week was really key for me to go, no, do you know what? This is one of those weeks and it happens to people because I wasn't too harsh on myself eventually. It meant that I didn't give up the next week. I got back onto it because I gave myself the grace of that week of going, do you know what? Life's just got in the way this week. My body needs rest. Let's get back on it next week.
Yeah. And how did you feel when you kind of let us know and then we confirmed, no, definitely put brakes on? How did
So
that?
so much relief. I was like, you know me very well now, but I wanted to do things right. I think it's probably part of the rejection sensitive dysphoria of ADHD as well. I want to make sure that, I'm keeping people happy, but ultimately this program is designed for me and it's designed to, you know, for me to get the results. So I wanted to, as much as I was worried about disappointment and everything, I reminded myself that ultimately we're doing this for me. But to be honest and let you guys know, this is what's happened and this is the call that I made, because then you could help me figure out whether that was the right call or not. Even though instinctively I did know, having yourself and Sam who have the expert knowledge of, helping me through whatever's been decided in the program was really helpful for me to reiterate to myself, and it's helped me throughout this program reiterate that my judgment on these things is good and I can continue to take that on after the program to know, oh well, I did this last time and Dylan and Sam said this is the right call, so I won't ever have those mornings where I'm not sure ever again. It's helped me have my own better internal judgment in a way.
Awesome. That's good to hear. You mentioned, again, the breaks and stuff, like when these breaks happen. I just want to iterate to anyone watching, like, there, everybody gets ill. Everybody goes on holiday at some point. Everybody moves house at some point, right? There are normal interruptions to one's routines, and the difference between, someone who has, I guess, adopted this as a lifestyle and has started to integrate this as to who they are now, will find it a lot easier to just get back on the horse and, start, as opposed to someone who maybe hasn't done the work. That's where a week turns into two, turns into a month, turns into sometimes years, right? And so, yes, the accountability helps in the moment, but that's where the importance behind the mind pillar and doing the heaven and hell task and the belief exercises that we did, basically provides its value long term once
Mm-hmm.
accountability is done, right? So you become self sufficient. So yeah, again, I told Sam and stuff, you were great because you just executed on everything that we give you, which was so it just makes it a pleasure to
Yeah,
go over.
I wanted to make the most of it. Like there's so many resources that, I haven't even had a chance to look at that you provided at the beginning, which I'm looking forward to seeing and just kind of taking even more away from the program. But I've lost my train of thought now. There we go. There's an center.
It's all the resources. So yeah.
Yeah.
We give you a Google Drive that you can keep and you have access to indefinitely, which have the 4 pillars that we look at. And so there is a ton of stuff on there. So yeah, take your time to go through.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this analogy that I heard, and I feel like it really lands with this kind of thing when you got coaching and you've also got access to information online now with AI, like so much of it.
Mm,
And I heard it coaching being described in this way. So where it's like if you imagine you've got for whatever reason, you've got to land a passenger airplane, right, aircraft, and there's no pilot to kind of help you. It's just you, and you've got two options. You've got access to like an iPad next to you with video instructions telling you exactly what to do, how to land this plane safely. So that's option one. And option two, there is a co-pilot. The co-pilot can't do anything for you, right? But they can tell you what to do, when to do it in the moment as you're going through each and every little nuance, when to turn this dial, when to press this button. I guess, how does that sound to you? Or like, how does that, come across to you, knowing how you went through the program and you had us there through
yeah.
the journey?
I think, yeah, that's a really good analogy because I think the main thing that I'm thinking of when I hear that analogy is the difference with the co-pilot being there is if, say, for example, you didn't do something quite right or circumstances change or things need to adapt, that person can be there with you to help you address what's happening in the moment. And also, it's just this sense of having someone outside of yourself to lean on whether that's just explaining what's going on that the person can support you. Like, oh, okay, if I had a particularly like heavy time at work, is there anything that we can be doing or you advise me to help with that, for example? There's never going to be like full instructions. Well, maybe with AI, but we don't know if we can trust it completely. Never going to be full instructions for you as a person. Whereas if you're kind of having someone talk you through it, I found that I think the benefit for me is I can explain exactly what's going on for me. You can hear it and apply what you know, and obviously have the benefit of having Sam there as well. So you've both got separate experiences and knowledge bases to apply to me. And because you have learned who I am as a person over time, can adapt it as best to me as you can. And I can sort of take it away. And also, it's like a learning thing, right? You know, you help me prioritize and focus on certain things. Whereas sometimes the amount of information out there can be so overwhelming. That's how I found it anyway, that I just didn't even know where to start. So by having the program, you know, you've got a framework, but then I said to myself, I'm going to come to these sessions and just be as honest as possible about what's going on, because at least then you can hear what the situation is and help me find the best solution for me. So I definitely think that resonates, that analogy.
Awesome, awesome. What was it like? I guess people around you, did they notice the changes that were happening and you were making?
Yeah, definitely. So I've had some really nice compliments from a lot of people at work, actually, which I suppose they
Yeah,
see me a lot,
yeah,
and my friends. And to be honest, the main one is just you're looking really well, which I think is really lovely, because that's ultimately like was my aim, was to be healthier. And as I say, everyone is there's lots of people who have complimented saying I look really well, and they've also been really interested to hear about how I've done it, because I think, you know, we're in the age of like weight loss jabs and everything like that now. So the fact that we've worked on this through exercise and nutrition and done that holistically and taken the time to lose weight sustainably, I think people are just like really impressed and happy to hear that something like this is working and it's benefiting me, and that I'm, you know, and that they can see the difference as well.
yeah. I mean, the fact that you mentioned jabs and, you know, the amount of people we've had join the program after having used jabs,
Oh, really?
sure, because it's like you're not learning how to, you know what I mean, do the internal changes, right? And so it works once you're on it, and then eventually, at some point, you're most likely going to want to come off it, right? And then when you do, slowly, you know, your appetite starts to creep up, and it undoes it. So, yeah,
Mm,
nothing's really going to substitute learning how to integrate exercise and slowly just make it part of your routine and feel okay on it. And then the nutrition side of things, understanding,
mhm.
you know, how to nourish your body in a good way. Like, did you feel, I guess, were you starving during the program, or how was that like?
Not at all. I genuinely thought I was going to be crying, like, I just want some chocolate. Um, but the thing that I noticed, the main thing was, you know, at the very beginning, you provided me with meal plans, and, you know, I made them exactly as was suggested, and I couldn't finish them. They, you know, they were very high volume, as you sort of taught me over time, prioritizing that protein, which makes you feel so much fuller, that I, yeah, just was finding that I just wasn't hungry. And if I did end up being hungry a bit later on before my next meal, well, I've still got some left over from the last meal. So that, by experiencing that, it's really, I think, helped me relook at food in terms of it's not necessarily good or bad, or you should to lose weight you should eat less. It's not about that. It's about, you know, being smart with what you're eating and prioritizing protein first, and then, you know, filling out with a lot of like not calorie dense foods that will fill you up, that are nutritious. So I now have this view of what my meal should be made up with, and even snacks. So like if I go to have a snack, I'm like, oh, what's something protein, you know, forward that I can have to, and that will then keep me full for the rest of it. So no, that was one thing I was worried about, and I did not experience whatsoever, which obviously is gonna really, really help you keep to those targets.
Finally, what would you say to someone who's sitting on the fence right now,
Mhm.
someone who maybe recognizes themselves in where you were at the start?
So I would say that you're probably thinking, is this the right time to do this? I don't know. Things are already hard as it is. I probably could do it myself anyway. What I would say is just take the leap, because actually, if you're in the same position that I was, I think accepting the help and getting help where you know that you need it is like actually like quite radical because you think you can handle it all yourself. But having people there to do the things that are hard for you at a time where you're already struggling with something like this that is going to basically help create a good foundation for you to move forward. So if I'm thinking about where I was like just on my ADHD journey generally, my health and self-care and well-being and stuff suffered because I was struggling with loads of other things. By having the program, I've definitely done more. I've cooked more, I've exercised more, etc. But because I've had the benefits come back to me almost immediately in some circumstances, or slower over time, or you've helped me by doing the meal plans that's just basically taken something off my plate. It's like a worthy trade to like sort of say, here you go, help me out, help me decide what I need to do here. That will lift up that sort of weight that's lifting on shoulders, going, I can't do this by myself, it's too difficult. Like take the plunge and just go for it, because I think there's never going to be a right time for people. And if you feel like you're struggling and your health and wellness are being impacted by that, you almost, I think, need something to help you with your health and fitness, so that that helps you build that foundation again to help you go, move on your way. If that's suffering, you're just going to feel even worse. You're not going to be able to pick yourself back up. So just, yeah, feel empowered to accept the help that you probably do need. And there's never a perfect time to do it. You've just got to throw yourself into it and trust the process.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I honestly really appreciate you taking the time to come on board and sharing your experience. Yeah, honestly, Sam sent you a lovely message. It was so nice reading that today.
He did.
You should be super proud of yourself. You absolutely smashed it over the last 16 weeks.
Thank you.
Great
Thank you so
work.
much.